Hey, good evening, folks. It's time for your second edition of Mindful Monday. So, this week's card, and take a step back. If you're new to this, I just started this last week. Every week, I'm going to be doing Mindful Mondays. So I have these cool cards, and there's one for each week in the year. Could be two in total, and each of them just say a quote or philosophical statement to reflect on. And so I'm just reading these, and there's some questions on the back that help you think about it and dive a little deeper into it and just reflect on it. So that's what Mindful Mondays are all about. And so this week's card says don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. And I had to think for a moment of what the heck that means. But I believe, to me, what this means is really to walk the walk, right? Don't just say what you're going to do, or don't just say, your life's philosophy. Actually live it, actually embrace it. And people will see that more than if you just tell them. What also comes to mind with this is in sales, I've heard the phrase, I've been trained on the phrase, show, don't tell, right? You want to show people things, you want to tell stories because facts tell, stories sell, right? And I mean, the whole point of that, going back to this card, is if you're sharing stories, you're sharing your authentic self, and you're showing people how this product or service has actually, had a real impact on you. But when it comes to life's philosophies, I think it's the same thing. Really walking the walk and taking the actions. There's a lot more substance behind that than there is to just say things. There's a lot of emptiness sometimes behind people's words. So that's, to me, what that means. Would love to hear your take on it as well in the comments. Now, on the back of the card, there's a series of questions to help you reflect on this. You can journal on it, and you can think about this a little more deeply and how this pertains to you, or how you can, start employing this into your life. The questions are, what do I value most? And then a follow-up is, what changes do I need to make for my life to reflect these values? So I thought about this, and for me, what I value most, I've got two things. Number one is authenticity, right? I really hate when people are fake, right? It just totally is a turnoff and drives me away from that person, right? Stay clear. So authenticity, and I think that goes hand in hand with what this card is saying. And the second is to own your life, to own where you're at currently, to not be a victim of circumstance, and to really take ownership of where you're at currently, but also own and take control of where you want to go in life. That has so much value. And if you look at somebody who, bootstraps their way through life and has just really has a lot of grit. I mean, I value nothing more. Saying value, what do you value the most? Grit is huge, right? People can just put their head down and just go through things. It's an incredible trait. It really is. So so the second question: what changes do I need to make for my life to reflect these values? So when I think about authenticity, for me, I think this goes back to just sharing my story, doing less telling. Especially when it comes to the real estate investing and the self-improvement and entrepreneurial education. Really just sharing my story and how this has actually impacted me, and just that could be through social media, or that could be just talking to people in everyday life. But I think sharing my authentic story, that authenticity will radiate and will show, as opposed to using some sort of cookie cutter pitch or skit or whatnot, if you will. And second is just taking the time to get to know others in both the real estate group that I'm in and the self-development group. Knowing others and knowing their stories, because not only Could that possibly have a positive effect on my life? But as I meet people, everybody comes from different walks of life, and maybe my story doesn't resonate with them, but maybe somebody else's story does, and that could be the thing that really turns a leaf for that other person, and that could be the thing that makes a big change for their life. So if I'm really going to dive into these programs and own it and share it with the world, not only do I need to share my story, but I have to share the story of others around me as well. And then secondly, when it comes to the other thing that I said I value the most is taking ownership of where you're at in life and taking control of where your life's going to go. My biggest challenge with this that I'm fighting through every day is overcoming fear. I mean, who doesn't have a challenge with that, right? We all struggle with that. I'm getting better, and you'll get better with practice, but it's interesting. I think Grant Cardone actually, I'm not going to quote him, but sort of paraphrase. I just recall this idea coming from him, and that's using fear as a guide. And it's like, hey, if you're afraid of something, then you should do it, as opposed to you're afraid of something, let's avoid that thing. Now, historically, I mean, in the caveman days, that would be pretty stupid, right? We learned fear for a reason, to protect ourselves, but that doesn't really apply in most cases today. In most cases, the things we're afraid of, there really isn't reason to be afraid of those things. So if you think of a habit loop where you have a trigger, and with a trigger, there's an action, and then after the action, there's a reward. Well, with fear right now, and for most people, the trigger, if you get that trigger of I'm afraid of something, the action is actually inaction, right? I'm deciding I'm not going to do the thing that I'm afraid of. And your reward is you didn't get turned down. Nothing bad happened. And that's a warm and fuzzy feeling. But what's not warm and fuzzy is if you continue to do that, then nothing will change. Nothing will change in your life, all right, for the better. So if you want to can take control of your future and really be the captain of your ship, direct which way you're going to go, and make a life that you're proud to call your own, you have to make changes. And in order to make changes, you have to take action, and you will face fear. And so for me, I am facing that many times. A year ago, I'd be terrified just to do this video, and not so much anymore, right? So as things get easier as you go, but you got to face the fear. And so I'm trying to train my brain and kind of reverse that habit loop, so that when I have a trigger that, hey, I'm afraid to do this, instead of immediate inaction or even thinking about an action, I should immediately act and do the thing that I'm afraid of, obviously within reason. And then the reward, it's going to replenish itself. By doing that enough times, you're going to expand your network. You're going to naturally, by doing that, sell more product, or whatever business you're in, you'll be more successful in that business. This could even apply if you just have you have a W-2, getting to know your coworkers, getting to know clients, and maybe winning more work for the company leads to a raise, right? There's really only positive things that can come from that, and you're just going to stretch yourself and grow more and more. So, anyways, I had a lot to say about this card, and hopefully some people took value out of it. Jacob, thanks for watching and sticking it through. Hopefully you got some value out of it. But yeah, feel free, you guys, chime in the chat. What do you think this means to you? Again, the quote is, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. And then the questions that follow with that: what do I value most? And what changes do I need to make for my life to reflect these values? All right, thanks for watching, and have a good night.